everyone. Welcome to Lizzie's Little Library and the Newbery Project. Today's book is the 1953 winner called Secret of the Andes by Anne Nolan Clark. This book is quite famous online, particularly on Goodreads, and people don't like this book. The reason they don't like it is this is the book that beat Charlotte's Web. Charlotte's Web is a lovely story. I have worked in a lot of classrooms where third grade does that as part of the curriculum. It's a sweet story. It is obviously very much fantasy, talking animals. You know, it's a good message, friendship. To read the reviews, people freely admit in their reviews, I haven't read this book, but I don't like it because it beat Charlotte's Web. So, you know, I kind of had that sense in mind of a lot of the perception of this book before I read it. I have got to say, I absolutely loved this book. It was such a nice surprise. Completely not at all what I expected, and I really liked it. Was it better than Charlotte's Web? I think it was. I mean, I'll go through the story. But, you know, talking animals aren't necessarily my thing, whereas, I'll get to it. I really like this book. So this follows very much the theme that the Newbery Selection Committee loves. The secret to winning a Newbery is to write a story about a child growing up. Set this story in a location that has not previously won, and that's pretty much the main criteria for winning the prize. This book is set in Peru, which is not a location we visited before. So I will give you a nice long summary. I took super copious notes because I loved some of the text, so I have a lot of quotes that I wanted to include. Let's get reading. So the story first starts when we meet QC, an 8-year-old boy, and Chuto, who I assumed was his grandfather, but he's just an adult who loves QC like a son. QC has never seen people in his life until today. They tend llamas, and he has a dog, and they keep them to themselves. And the dog better not die, because I can't handle stories where books or dogs die. Despite there being no people in 8 years, a traveling minstrel finds their valley, and Chuto proposes that he watch the llamas while he takes QC to the salt pits 2 valleys away. The minstrel describes the Milky Way as a great river flowing across the heavens, and I liked that description. This book in general has really nice descriptions and imagery. In the morning, Chuto takes QC along the trail to watch the sunrise, then points out the spot where he found QC. The boy wonders what happened to his family, but he doesn't ask any questions. We learn that Chuto leaves the valley twice a year, once for food supplies, and once for a mysterious errand he never discusses. He is taking QC out into the valley because he says the outside world had come to beckon QC to go beyond the mountain. Chuto must take him. It had to be done. And I really like that kind of suggesting or hinting at like a prophecy. I really like it. Chuto doesn't say much, but what he does say is usually pretty profound. For example, on page 23, he says, "There are many things we do not know. The time is not now to know." Then, in response to nothing, the other says, then he says, "We are the keepers, waiting." And Chuto is my favorite character. I want to live and study and learn with him. He's wonderful. On the morning of their departure, Chuto admits that he does not want to go. But, page 27, he says, "I do not want to go. There is need to go. It has been asked of me. Once I received a like request, and I refused it. The cost of that refusal lies heavy in my heart." They stay in a village with people who seem to know Chuto. They aren't introduced to QC, but they identify him as one of the chosen. Then they confirm the other did not come back. Chuto says death has a way of not coming back, but this time is a good choice. And this took a vibe very much like The Giver, which is one of my favorite kids' books. And I like this vibe that the story has. So they get salt. QC sees a car, and Chuto tells him to chew a coca leaf for energy, which doesn't exactly seem appropriate there. They get home, and QC never wants to leave. The trip starts to seem more like a dream than a memory to him. A man comes to the valley. QC thinks he looks like royalty. He introduces himself as Amata, or the wise one, the teacher. Chuto responds that it is not time. He is too young. Amata responds that he is old beyond his years. It is ordered. Chuto releases QC to Amata's care. QC is neither scared nor excited because he knows this has happened before. And I like this book. I like the unknown. I like that Chuto knows more than he's sharing. QC studies with Amata, then returns to Chuto. Eventually, the old man sends the boy to Cuzco to find what he's looking for. That's his whole explanation. QC wishes he could say he'll be back, but he already knows that he's looking for a family, and he won't be back. At the beginning leg of his journey, there is a really nice piece of text on page 76. QC never knew how long he stood there, long enough to grow older, long enough to see dreams die. Then on the next page, an old man on the mountaintop let his tears drop to heal the heartache of a lonely boy. Eventually, QC reaches a gated community where the guard greets him with, "You are expected. Enter." Then on page 81, the young Indian led QC to a great arched door. Slowly it swung open, and a voice asked, "Is he here?" I really like the suspense and the unknown element of this book. I was expecting a simple story of a boy growing up, and this is so much more interesting. Everyone has told QC to follow his heart, yet there seems to be a lot of predestination that he's discovering. The elder he meets then says, "I touch the past and hold it for the future." QC makes it to town and barters the wool he brought for food and clothing. He spends time with a family, but it doesn't feel quite right. Then he gets a paper fortune with the exact same message the elder had told him. On page 104, and I mean, the book is only like 120 pages. On page 104, the text says, "He belonged to the Inca. His heart was among the mountain peaks in a hidden valley." He realizes his llama, Misty, is his home, and they're going home. And this did remind me of The Wizard of Oz. If I ever go looking for my heart's desire again, I won't look any further than my own backyard. Because if it isn't there, I never really lost it to begin with. It's a good moral, good ending to a story. QC talks with another elder who says there has been a landslide. He shares the greatest secret of their people. "Not yet are we conquered. The Inca shall never die." QC returns to Chuto, who reveals his purpose. He shows QC a cave stacked with gold that the Spanish plundered, but it later vanished. They have a system in place of 2 to guard it. One whose footsteps approach the end of the trail, and one whose young feet stand at the beginning. And I thought that imagery was so pretty that obviously they're viewing the trail as their lives, and as one is reaching the end, a new one is chosen to begin the trail, to begin the journey. Chuto confirms that the previous one who had been sent was called Titu, and the woman that QC met in the market was his mom. So that was a nice unexpected twist there. And presumably, QC is going to stay in the valley and guard the treasure until the next one is sent. So surprisingly, I really liked this book. I was expecting it just to be, a little boy takes care of the llamas and he grows up the end. And I really liked how much it reminded me of The Giver, which isn't going to be published for like 30 more years. So really we should be saying The Giver reminds me of this. But very few people have read this compared with The Giver. They're both amazing books. I really liked the idea of the prophecy. I liked the idea that all of the elders knew what was QC's purpose, but they couldn't just tell him outright. You know, it was hinted at, it was suggested. He was given age-appropriate, situation-appropriate clues. Chuto actually tells him that when he was sent to the village, that the boys are sent to make their own choice. And do they want to return to the valley? And Chuto says it took him a good 2 years to make that choice. So that also reminds me of, I saw a documentary called The Devil's Playground about an Amish community where the children had a time called Rumspringa, where they left the Amish world and went to the English world, or the American world. And then I think in that documentary, I think every single one of them chose to adopt the Amish values for themselves. Very similar that QC, I mean, it only took him like a couple days to make that choice and to realize that the valley and the llamas and being an Inca were his destiny. I really liked QC as a character. I really liked Chuto as a character. He had such pearls of wisdom. And he didn't talk very much, but everything he said was really profound. And, I want Chuto to write a book of, like, life advice. It's like, I would totally read that book. So let me see if I have any other notes. Just the other note of all of the foreshadowing. I really liked that. I love foreshadowing in books. I think it's a really good writing trait where clearly the entire story has been plotted and outlined, and the author puts those clues in, sprinkling them along the way, and then you get to the end and you look back, and it is just all of the clues were there. This book is amazing. Did it deserve to beat Charlotte's Web? I think it did. I know a lot of people won't necessarily agree with me. I would challenge them to actually read this book and don't just reject it outright based on the warm, fuzzy, happy memories of reading Charlotte's Web when you were a child. So this book was excellent. Even though it's basically the same story as all the other Newberys, a child grows up, I liked the foreshadowing, I liked the characters, I liked the idea of predestination, I liked that everyone knows more than QC and leads him where he needs to be led. This is by far my favorite Newbery so far, at least reading them in order, because I read a handful of them when I was younger, so I really like those too, but reading them in order, this is definitely by far the best one, and I recommend it to everyone. Check out A Secret of the Andes, and happy reading. Thanks for watching. Bye.